Hello class, today we are going to be discussing Piaget's theory, the 6 substages of the sensory motor stage. Introduction. Jean Piaget was an influential cognitive theorist in development. He was intrigued to explore the ability of children to reason and think by observing his own children's development. Piaget proposed that we are continuously trying to maintain cognitive equilibrium in what we perceive and what we know. According to the Piagetian perspective, infants learn about the world primarily through their senses and motor abilities. Aside from his stages of cognitive development, ranging from birth to adulthood, Piaget discusses schema, assimilation, and accommodation to further describe his beliefs. Piaget was able to view how children created schemas that shaped their perceptions, cognitions, and judgment of the world. Schema, assimilation, and accommodation. Schema entails a framework for organizing information through processes of assimilation and accommodation. For instance, a child could have a schema of a car with 4 wheels and may categorize moving objects with 4 wheels as a car, like a wagon, strollers, shopping carts, and so forth. Essentially, if a child were to encounter a new object they weren't well acquainted with and incorrectly labeled it a car, this would be known as assimilation. Assimilation is the process of fitting new information into an existing schema, like a car. Accommodation is comprised of discerning between 2 objects correctly, where an object may have 4 wheels but it's not a car. Ultimately, the child is able to accurately name an object or animal. Substages 1 and 2. Piaget identified the 6 substages within the sensory motor stage that outline how infants and young children develop cognitive abilities. Substage number 1 encompasses reflexes, where newborns learn of their world by utilizing reflexes like sucking, reaching, and grabbing, which lasts roughly about 0 to 1 months. With time, these resourceful reflexes become more intentional and meaningful. Substage number 2 lasts about 1 to 4 months. In the next 3 months, an infant starts to actively involve their own body in a form of a repeated exercise. For instance, an infant may suck their thumb simply because it feels good, and now the learned behavior could essentially be self-soothing in a distressing environment or experience. This will motivate the infant to repeat the newly learned behavior, which would have occurred by chance. In the term, the word primary is involved simply because the infant's own body is used.
Substage 3 of sensory motoral development is called secondary circular reactions, and it occurs from about 4 to 8 months old. This is when the child begins interacting with objects in their environment. At first, this interaction is accidental, but then becomes intentional and repetitive. It's also the first taste the child gets of cause and effect. For example, if you hang a toy over a child's bassinet, the child may accidentally kick that toy and it become a repetitive behavior of kicking the toy because they're highly motivated by the effect of that behavior, the toy moving. Substage 4 of sensory motoral development is coordination of secondary circular reactions, and this happens from about 8 to 12 months old. The child uses these basic behaviors they learn through repetition to achieve a certain goal through coordination. The child can also now anticipate the outcome or the effect of their actions, these repetitive behaviors they've practiced, and can achieve simple goal-oriented tasks. In Piaget and in Inderhelder's book, The Psychology of a Child, they state, the subject sets out to obtain a certain result, independent of the means he is going to employ. For example, obtaining an object that is out of reach or has just disappeared under a piece of cloth or a cushion. So an example of this could definitely be a child drops a toy a few feet away from them and they notice that, recognize that, are motivated to get that toy back, can move over to that toy and achieve it back for themselves. Stage 5 is tertiary circular reactions, and this takes place from about 12 to 18 months. The child begins to see the world in a cause and effect manner and start exploring the world through trial and error. They're able to use their cognitive abilities as well as their motor abilities to coordinate behaviors and has the ability to plan out their actions. This is a stage that I hear a lot of parents really don't care for very much because very typical examples of it are children finding they can throw toys downstairs, throw their food off of the high chair wherever they eat, and just overall, are motivated to see the effect of their physical abilities of throwing that toy, throwing the food, knocking it over, things like that.
Okay, let's dive into stage 6 of Piaget's sensory motor stage, which occurs between 18 and 24 months. At this point, toddlers begin to develop representational thinking. That means that they can form new mental images of objects and events in their mind, unlike earlier stages. They don't need to physically experiment through trial and error anymore. Instead, they can anticipate outcomes before acting. A major skill that emerges here is deferred imitation. That's when a child copies an action that they saw earlier, even if the model isn't there anymore. For example, a kid might watch their parents sweep the floor in the morning, and then the next day they might go and do that same sweeping motion. We also see the beginning of symbolic play. This is when a child pretends that one thing is another, like using a banana as a phone or pretending like a toy block is like a car. These early pretend play moments are powerful signs that a child is building mental flexibility needed for language development, memory, and problem solving. So stage 6 is all about mental representation, the ability to think without needing to act, and sets the stage for everything that comes next in early childhood development. Now let's quickly review the entire sensory motor stage, which spans from birth to age 2. This stage is divided into 6 substages that show how a child moves from reflex-based behavior to intentional action and eventually to imaginative thinking. 3 key concepts to help explain how this learning happens are schemas, which are mental frameworks. Think of them as the brain's way of organizing experiences. Assimilation is when a child fits new information into what they already know. For example, if they know how to shake a rattle, they might shake a spoon the same way. And accommodation is when they adjust their thinking to fit something new, like realizing a spoon doesn't make noise when shaken, so they start banging it or try something else instead. Over time, babies learn through these processes, first by interacting with their environment, using their senses and motor skills, then by coordinating actions, understanding object permanence, solving problems, and finally by using symbols and imagination. To check for understanding, I created a little Kahoot quiz, has a bunch of questions that you can go through. You can play it on the barcode that's on the link. Also, all references are going to be at the last slide. If there's any questions or concerns, you can go look deeper into that for more information about the sensory motor stages. Y'all take care.